Today we're excited to introduce a hidden gem that's located right here in the Tri-Cities. Wynne Tyree began her career on Madison Avenue in New York. In 2004, she created Smarty Pants, a $20 million international market research and strategic consulting firm who works with companies like Lego, Target, Nickelodeon, Netflix, Hasbro, Kellogg's, Microsoft, Dick's Sporting Goods, McDonald's, and Disney. Wow, you impressed? I am. She's a leading authority on the lifestyles and consumer behaviors of kids, teens, and families around the globe, and is a gifted brand builder and businesswoman. Over the past 20 years, Wynne has become an expert at growing her clients' business as well as her own, with offices in New York, Boston, San Diego, San Francisco, St. Louis, Myrtle Beach, and Johnson City, Tennessee. She's mastered the art of leading a highly efficient virtual team and building a winning brand. Today we're excited to bring to you Wynne Tyree as she speaks about Put On Your Big Girl Panties.
I'm excited, but I'm nervous. So usually I'm speaking to like a big room of people that I don't know, so the fact that I might see you guys at the grocery store tomorrow freaks me out. Or that my kid might have bullied your kid is like sort of scary. My kids aren't bullies. I hope, not that I know of. But yeah, I'm sort of nervous, and I'm really excited to be here today. As I mentioned, I've given a lot of talks over the past really kind of 20 years, but you guys are not only my really kind of second or third local talk, but you're also definitely my first all-women talk. I've never done this, so I was more stressed out than ever about what I was going to wear. I don't know why. And I was like, they're going to judge me for my skirt. But you're not. But by the way, it's too small, so if I bust out of it in the middle of the talk, we're all women, and it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. I do have on my big girl panties, but not by choice, because I have to wear big girl panties. But anyway, we're going to have fun today. I hope that we're going to have fun. I want you guys to cross-pollinate a bit, and I'd hope that you can leave inspired. I do want to thank the Bank of Tennessee. Thank you guys so much for inviting me to do this and for just creating this series. This is a great resource for customers and prospects, and so I was excited to hear that this existed because, again, I'm like, yay, women! Like I feel like I don't see you guys around. So probably because I'm in my house most of the time, but it's exciting to know that we all exist and are kind of powerful business women in our own right in this area. So I'm very excited by that. Today I want to talk to you about business as well as just lessons that I've learned over the years. I will do the disclaimer and tell you that I've got some talking notes here, but not because I don't know my own backstory, but because I will talk for like 10 hours, so I know that you want to go home. This is my way of like making sure that I don't, talk you to death. So if you see me glancing down, just whatever, get over it. But I would love to debunk some myths with you guys today that I feel like we've learned as women that quite frankly don't really help us very much in business and sort of getting our fair share of the business world. I'm going to talk to you a bit about putting on your big girl panties and doing things a bit differently, and hopefully with the end goal of you guys really living the lives that you personally want to live. I'll start with a little bit of a 5-minute backstory, which Jan kind of just did. I'll go back even further to my old stomping ground in Kingsport. I grew up in Kingsport. So woot woot for the tribe or the tribe roll or whatever. This is my little star on the map that some of you share. But yeah, I grew up in Tennessee. I grew up in Kingsport. I did go to DB. By the time I was a senior, I was so ready to just stop hanging out at the Burger King parking lot and move on with my life. You're supposed to laugh at that. You know that you hung out at some fast food parking lot while you were growing up. In Kingsport, it was Burger King. That's what we did. And had a perm and probably smoked a cigarette and were destined for greatness. But I was itching to really just get out of town. I felt uninspired and I felt bored. I knew I wanted to move on, but I didn't really know where. My parents had not gone to college, and we were very blue collar, and so when I was like, where could I go? They were like, I don't know, go to ETSU. So I was like, that's a good option, so I applied there. And then one day when my dad was watching a Syracuse basketball game on TV, and I kept bugging him and saying, where can I go to college? What should I do? He was like, why don't you go to Syracuse? As in, like, please, could you leave already? Because I'm trying to watch the game. So partially out of spite, because I was a feisty 17-year-old, and partially just because, honestly, that's as far as my mental map could stretch. I was like, I'm gonna go there. So I went to the guidance counselor and I was like, where's Syracuse? And they're like, what? And so I read in a big book and I was like, that sounds good. And so I applied, and I don't know why they let me in, but they did. And so I got in a car that, I think ours was so broken down at the time we might have borrowed a car from somebody who went to our church. But my mom and I like drove to, again, what was essentially Canada, and dropped me off. And I was like, rock on, I'll go here. What else was I doing? So I ended up, when I was at Syracuse, meeting people from all over the world. There were people not only from the Northeast and Boston and New York and LA, but there were people from all different walks of life. There were girls on my floor who were Muslim, who were Jewish, who were African American. Like, for me, it was like a big, giant cultural petri dish, and I was like, oh, this wasn't the way it was in Kingsport. And so I became very fascinated by people and cultures and the way people use things to identify themselves. I was sort of fascinated by, how does that girl have a Louis Vuitton bag and she's like 17? Like, I couldn't wrap my head around that because I didn't even know what Louis Vuitton was. There was a lot going on at the university, and so in many ways I was sort of a fish out of water, but it made me sort of a cultural sponge, and so I just became very fascinated by people, and also by brands, and in some ways by marketing, but really it was about people. And so I ended up majoring in sociology just because it was a liberal arts easy degree to get, and that seemed kind of cool. I was pretty convinced that I was going to be the great white hope that would end racism and sexism and homophobia and any other kind of social ills that we had as a nation. I learned that that doesn't pay very well, so I took a detour. But that's who I am in my heart. That didn't really work out. But anyway, so when the sociology store wasn't hiring after undergrad, I went to Philadelphia and went to graduate school, partially just to buy time because I didn't know what else I wanted to do with my life. And I did march on Washington a couple of times, and I think that was, what war was that? There was a war in the early 90s that I was sure that my presence was going to end. Yeah, Desert Storm. I don't even remember that. That's how passionate I was about that cause. But I ended up in Philadelphia and learned a lot more about sort of the world and people. And then after I'd finished my master's and my coursework, I was like, I am so tired of living on ramen noodles and like $700 a month salary as a teaching assistant. Could I just please get a job? So I ended up taking a job in New York, and so made my way a little bit north, sort of 2 hours north of Philly, and went by myself, and I was like, I'm doing this, I'm gonna take over the world. And I found a recruiter who said, well, I could get you like $40,000 a year, and I was like, what? Like, that was like $40 million in my head. So I'm like, whatever job it is, sign me up. So I ended up getting a job kind of as like a pretty low-paid person in the hierarchy of advertising executives, but I ended up going to work and being a very small fish in a very big pond, which in retrospect was a great move. But I ended up going to work on Madison Avenue at one of the world's most powerful advertising agencies, and I really didn't know anything about advertising. In fact, I thought advertisers were the devil, and they were part of who I was going to remember what my goal was. You got to remember what my goal was. So I was like, I'll infiltrate from the inside, but anyway, that didn't really work. So I ended up working for a couple of years there, and I got really good at doing consumer research. So when I was studying sociology, I'd learned to do research methods. Like, I'd learned to interview people or to moderate focus groups or to do online, well, really online was just starting at the time. We'd learned to do surveys in the mail. I'd learned to do things like that. And then I went to work for another advertising agency and stayed there for a bit. And then I got an offer to go to work for a small kind of kid-focused advertising agency that was in Connecticut. So I, being the sort of money-grubbing girl that I was, just followed the money. And I thought, this could be a really bad idea because why specialize so early in my career? Shouldn't I be like a general market person? Like, why go specialize in youth? But he was offering $75,000, and I, at this point, was already making 55. So I was like, I'm in. Just where is my first day of work? Like, so I sort of followed the money. In retrospect, and I kept telling myself, and I rationalized it as, if I go here and this guy's a hack and this doesn't work out really well, I can always go back. Like, what's the drawback? So I ended up making a decision to go to work there. And so I ended up in Connecticut and became really a specialist at doing kid research. So I started to learn more and more about, like, not just moderating a focus group of adult women who want to talk about clothing for Kohl's, but I became an expert at, like, understanding toys and entertainment and food and beverage. And so my personal kind of client roster began to grow. And next thing you know, I was sort of traveling all around the world and would be in Japan one week and Mexico the next week. And in retrospect, I can't believe I had I would say BALLS, but I can't believe I had the panties to do that. But yeah, how did I end up doing that? But anyway, I was getting really good at what I was doing, and I hope, like some of you, and I also don't hope, like some of you, that, like, I was becoming sort of the victim of my own success, meaning my boss had figured out, like, I got a cash cow who works for me. She's hustling, she'll do it. And long story short, after a while, I was like, I think I'm just making him rich. Like, can you identify with any of it? Yes, women do that. We make men rich a lot. And that's epiphany continued to sort of come to me, where I was like, why am I miserable? Every weekend I'm working, every night I'm working. Me and my husband at the time had just bought our very first house. It was all crappy and we wanted to fix it up. And I wasn't even there. It was just, I was realizing, like, why am I getting punished by being good? And so, long story short, as I went through my sort of professional journey, I'd met a cute boy and we got married, and he's grown, by the way. I'm not a pedophile. I met a cute boy. And we had our first child. So I, like all great moms in 2000, whatever it was committed to breastfeeding. So I was like, we're breastfeeding, or I'm going in on this. So the good news about that was that, yes, that's the time when you're delusional and sleepwalking and don't know what time of day it is, and you're thinking, where is the formula? Why did I have this idea? But the good news is that sometimes while you're delusional, your mind is open and free to think of other things. And so I remember very vividly sort of nursing my daughter one night, and it was probably 4 a.m, and I was, does anybody have a kid? Do you remember that? Do you remember that amazement where you're like, this is a whole entire human being, and, like, I'm responsible for I can create this thing, and, like, it's sort of surreal. So I remember, that's, again, delusional, sleep-deprived sort of thinking, but I remember that night sort of looking at her and thinking, what do I want for her? Like, oh, I'm not going to start to cry. Okay, I'm not going to cry. But I remember thinking, what do I want for my daughter? Like, here's a whole human that, like, I'm in charge of their destiny. Like, what do I want for them? And so I remember vividly saying in my head, or maybe out loud, honestly, that I just wanted her to be happy, and I wanted her to be free, and I wanted her to be financially free, and I wanted her to not have to answer to anyone. I'm going to start crying. Why am I crying? We all do that when you have a kid. And then 5 seconds after that, had a thought of, how can I teach her to be that if I'm not that? I'm not independent. I'm not free. I'm still making this chump rich. I'm not going to be here to watch her. Like, yes, I'm doing well professionally, but this is not what I want to do. I don't want to be the absentee parent who's like, great job over there, kid, and I'm not there to, like, witness it and mold it. So really, for me, my why and my impetus for starting Smarty Pants was, again, middle of the night sort of thinking, but I started thinking, how can I expect that and want that for her if I'm not willing to get that for myself? Like, I need to role model that for me. So that night, why am I crying? Oh my God, why am I crying? Please don't get this on video. Oh my Lord. Yeah, it's like an estrogen fest in here. I've never even I don't even know why I'm crying. I haven't even gotten to the point. I haven't even started the talk yet. I'm still on my 5-minute backstory. Anyway, so that night I decided, okay, I'm doing this. And so I used my maternity leave and I started writing stuff down. And I started making a little appointment to go meet with the SCORE counselor. Do you know the old people who, the retired people who for me at sorry! In my 20s, they were old. And isn't it the service corps of retired executives? The guy I met with was old. He was very old. But he had worldly advice. And I started talking to banks, and I started talking to accountants, and I started basically hatching a little plan, because I'm like, what else am I doing while I watch this sack of potatoes grow up? Like, they don't do anything when they're first born. So it's a great time to bake up a business plan. So that's what I did. I sort of got to the point where I could visualize it, and I could imagine it coming to be. And then I remember sort of coming up with a name in the middle of the night. And I then got to the point where I was ready to share my vision with my husband, who is so much more risk averse than me. And probably he was not as sleep deprived as I was at the time. And he kept saying, what about insurance? What will we do about the health care? It's $600. We only pay $300 of it now. We'd have to pay $300 more. And then the next day he'd be like, what if we couldn't pay the mortgage? What would we do? And then I finally got to the point where I'm like, you are killing my buzz. This is enough already. I'm over here hatching up a plan for our worldwide domination, and you're killing my buzz with this $300 conversation. You're killing me. He was sitting on the bed, I was in the bedroom. I'd had enough, because in my head, I was taking over the world. In his head, he's like, what if he can't pay the mortgage? So then I had the talk with him that day where I said, listen, we've only known each other like 4 or 5 years, which was true. You don't know what I can do. Like, if I will it to be, it will be. Either get on the bus or get out of my way. You're pissing me off. And so he knew right that minute. He saw my resolve. He knew that I was serious, that I didn't have some cockamamie idea to start a bakery even though I can't cook. Like, he knew I was serious. So from that day on, he was like, I'm on board. I don't want a nanny raising our kids. If you're going to do that, I'm going to raise our daughter. Are you okay with that? And I was like, okay, that makes things even more scary, because now both of us don't have a job. But if that's what you want, I'm going to let you knock yourself out. So basically that's what happened, was that my husband and I started to bake up our plans while I was on maternity leave. He then took a few months of paternity leave right after that. And then on December 31st, we took our last paychecks from our companies, and then on January 1st, opened up the imaginary doors of what really didn't exist, but in my head, it was gonna be big. So that's what we did. I remember that we got the business started. Our goal that first year was, oh dear Lord, please just let us make back our salaries. Like, that was my goal, was like, just let me get there, because I'm never gonna hear the end of it if that does not happen. So the very first year, we did $700,000 in business. That's not what I took home. I won't tell you that part. But we did $700,000 worth of business, and I was hoping to do like maybe 50 or 100. Like, I just wanted us to be able to pay the bills. The year after that, it was like 1.2 million. The year after that, it was 2 million, and then it was 3 million, and then it was 4 million, and it still keeps growing. And like Jan said, we're a B2B company. We're consultants to company. Like, I don't have a widget or a gadget or anything to sell consumer facing, but we're kind of the behind the scenes people who basically help companies get smart about young people and families. So we don't really do anything locally. We love our lives locally. About 2 years into Smarty Pants, we needed help. And so I had the great idea that we'd move to Tennessee. My husband's from Brooklyn, so he was like, what are we talking about here? Except he was really like, what are we talking about here? Like, he was talking about so we moved to Tennessee. I thought, I'll have family support. We needed it. And it's worked, and we love being here, and we love the Tri-City Airport, and I love you guys. Like, this is a great place to have a life and to have a family. It doesn't, business-wise, we don't do a lot here, but I live here, I sleep here, and I run, like, this is like one side of my like home office. This is headquarters. Like, it's all happening from like mission control. Now it's, most of our company is women. There's me and 3 guys locally. We don't all work in that office, but that's kind of like one side of the office. The desks and stuff are on the other side. But I'm sort of Charlie. Like, remember Charlie's? I'm dating myself. If you're a millennial, you don't know it. I'm like Charlie's Charlie's Angels. Like, we're all doing it virtually. Our clients want us to go on the road and do their research for them in major metropolitan areas or in people's homes. And then when it's time to do face-to-face stuff, we're going to our clients' offices. So they don't care where we are. They don't know we don't have, this beautiful facade and this beautiful office space like Bank of Tennessee does. But anyway, and as you mentioned, like, we've got satellite little offices all around the country and are doing amazing work. But again, this is sort of my office. Anyway, that was way longer than 5 minutes. I cannot believe I cried. That was not part of my dress rehearsal. I still don't know what happened. I'm going to tell my husband that tonight. He was like, what? He's going to be like, why were you crying? But anyway, I have learned a ton over the past 20 years kind of business-wise, but then 10 years in terms of just building my own personal business. And I want to share some of those things with you today. And so some of them you might have to, again, sort of put your big girl panties on, because I hope that you can get a little bit uncomfortable and that you can come along with me. The first thing I'll talk about is that you have to know your why. I sort of overshared on my why, but if you don't know where you're going and why you want to get there, you're not going to get there. It's that simple. For me, it was about the freedom and it was about the quality of life. And I just didn't want to be stuck in traffic on 95 anymore. I hated living in the New York metro area because it took me an hour and a half to get to the airport to even leave to get where I was going to go. I wanted to live in a place where I could actually enjoy life. And so I had a reason for kind of creating it, but that was sort of mine. I think that I didn't want to build a well in Africa. I was not out to save the world, but I wanted to buy my parents or my in-laws a brand new house. I wanted to not have to stress out about how are my kids going to go to college. So my goals were very personal, and I think, do you have pen and paper with you? Okay, do it. We're going to take 1 minute break, but I want you to write down some of your personal whys. Even if you don't own a business, that doesn't matter. Why are you working? What are you doing? Why are you even here? Most people aren't here. What's some of your personal whys as to what you want out of your life? Because when the road gets bumpy, you got to have something pulling you forward. What's pulling you? Can you write down? You're not going to share them. Just, I want you to kind of go home with those tucked away in your purse or in your pocket. Right, Debbie. You're right. You're done. You established those long ago, right? Whatever road you're on, whatever journey you're on, you guys know that's not an easy journey. I draw a lot of metaphors now from motherhood because now I have 3 kids, and over the course of watching them, I've drawn all these sort of business parallels in my life a lot, and sometimes I'll watch things with them and I'm like, that's exactly the way it is in my business world. And this is a silly little story, but I remember our second child, we were convinced he was slow and special because he just would not crawl and he was a late bloomer. But when you're a parent and you're like, when is this kid gonna crawl? What's going on? All the other kids are crawling. And I remember I would sit him down on the ground and would manually lift up his knee and try and I'm gonna teach this kid to crawl. We're gonna get there. So I'd be like, come on, buddy, you can do it. And I'm physically moving him. And then one day, I study kids for a living. I thought maybe I put a colorful little toy 8 inches in front of him. Well, guess what? If you're a mom, you know that works. So I put the toy there. He's staring at it. I don't know what's going on in his head, but it worked, because next thing you know, he lifts his own leg. And I'm like, where's that been all this time? Maybe you're not special after all. But the point being is, what is your toy? What's gonna make you learn to crawl? Because it doesn't matter if somebody's moving your leg or you have to move your own leg. You have to know what you're moving towards. And unless you know what you're moving towards, you're not gonna get there. And I feel a lot of us, and I'm guilty of this as well, we get on this sort of treadmill of life where we're I'm going to work tomorrow. But why are you going to work tomorrow? What are you working towards? What's really your personal goals? What's your freedom? And then I'm going to pick on who feels vulnerable and who feels like they want to share. There might be something in it for you. Yay, okay. You're pregnant, you'll overshare. I might as well be pregnant, I'm crying. I don't know what. Yeah, we're connected. We're connected. Do you mind to share one of your whys with us?
I love the freedom that I have, that I can work by myself, and that I have time. So technically I have I'm a part of the team.
Right, but it's freedom for you. Anybody else want to share? Anybody else feel brave enough to share? Yeah.
Build something meaningful. Do something meaningful in my life. Build something that's sustainable.
I like that. I don't have a book for you, but I like it. I'm giving away free things tonight. What's yours?
Mine is, I want to see the world with my own eyes.
Ooh, what does that mean? That's too deep.
I want to go
Oh, okay, like literally see the world. Okay, I thought it was like metaphorically, like you wanted to see the world with you. Okay, so like to, right. You want to see the world, travel, do your own thing, live different. Anybody else have any unique whys? Yeah?
I want to wake up every morning knowing I've got enough money in the bank and I have the ocean out my bedroom window.
Oh, that would be nice. Damn this landlocked area. Yeah, I hear ya. Like we need ocean here. Yes.
No boss.
No boss. I love it. When I was like thinking about, okay, what do I want to share? I found this. I made my husband take a picture of it. It's like posted in the closet on like this back thing on like this wall. We never look at it. But this was a list that he and I sat and wrote down. And it's intentionally so small that you can't read it because some of these are so stupid and embarrassing. But for us, they were really important. We were like, we want to have a big foyer. I mean, that was what like our goal. And like some of them are so silly. But whatever yours is, it doesn't matter. But have yours. What is it? What's really compelling you? The second, let's move on. Specializing is one I'll talk to you a bit about. You know your why. You know what's pulling you. You need to be recognized for something and think about how you're going to differentiate yourself. Be an expert at something. If you bake cookies, be the best damn sugar cookie maker in the world. Like focus on something. Give people something to know you for and what they should come to you for. If you think about, okay, I don't know her, but I doubt Serena Williams wakes up in the morning and practices tennis and volleyball. She's good at tennis. Like that's what she's going to focus on. Like if I own McDonald's, we're not venturing out into sushi next month. Like you're McDonald's. And if you think about it, none of you wants to get your hair cut at the unisex salon. Like nobody wants to go there. Men don't want to go there. Women don't want to go there. What should you be known for? What do you do well? If you are a baker, bake awesome cupcakes, and then people will give you the free pass of like, oh my gosh, have you tried her cupcakes? By the way, she's great at brownies too. But if you're like a baker, then people are like, I think she bakes, it's sort of hit or miss. Do you know what I mean? Like it doesn't work the same. Like when you do something well, people give you, do you know what I'm saying? Like think about specializing in every industry. Is anybody in the room a physician? Are any physicians in the room? Or doctors? I'm just joking. In almost every category, and you definitely see it as very much in the medical world, but in almost every category in every industry, specialists make more than general practitioners. That's just the way the world works. The more specialized you are at something, the more valuable you are. And if you sell houses, I don't know, what's the specialty of house selling? Sell the luxury house. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like pick your niche. Like I sell condos. I don't know what that would be. But like being great at something is sometimes better than just like I sell real estate. And that I didn't mean that to pick on you. Do you know what I'm getting at? Okay. Anyway, I'm like, let's just move on. Who wants to make the case as to what they're a specialist at? Like, can you sell me on your specialty? Who wants to be brave enough to do that? Tell me.
I'm a real estate agent.
Yeah. Okay, stand up and mean it. Put on your big girl panties. Sell me on it. Sell us all on it.
Well, I am a realtor, and I enjoy working with first-time home buyers.
Uh-huh.
I really feel they need guidance in the world of mortgages and buying homes, home inspections, things of that nature. So I really like to work with the first-time home buyers and protect them at the moment.
But tell me why you're good at it, not what they need. Why are you good at first-time home buying?
Because I enjoy informing them and walking them through each step.
Do you know what you're talking about?
Yes, I've worked with a lot of first-time home buyers.
Yeah, tell me that. Say, I know what I'm talking about. I'm an expert at this. Sell me on it.
Oh, I didn't know you wanted me to do that.
Do it! As I yell at you aggressively across the room.
Well, if you're a first-time home buyer,
Yeah.
I can guarantee that I will walk you through each and every step of
Uh-huh.
the home buying process, from shopping the MLS to actually making appointments, going through the properties, looking at all the pros and cons that fit best into your personal situation.
You talk to them like they're our own children.
And if they have questions after they've talked with their lenders, I like to help them, and then also encourage them to go back and ask more questions so they get it straight from the source. I'll just that I will walk you through each process, and you'll be very comfortable with whatever questions you have. If I don't know the answer, I will get the answer for you from the source that the answer should come from. I'll make sure that you're very comfortable with this decision, and I don't talk anybody into anything. I probably talk people out of things more than
Okay, so what's your name? Linda McBride. Thank you, Linda, for sharing and being vulnerable and the guinea pig for that. Work on it. Get it down to 60 seconds. Tell me why you're awesome, but do it tonight at home in the mirror. Okay. I'm just joking. You don't have to do anything. You do whatever the hell you want because you're in charge of your own destiny. Okay? The third thing I want to talk to you about is taking calculated risks. If you aren't willing to take calculated risks, you're never going to get the results that you want to have. Nothing is going to change, as cliche and silly as this sounds. Like, nothing's going to change unless you do. Unless you do something differently, you're not going to get results. Like, you know, the whole, like, what's the definition of insanity? Like, that whole thing. You guys know the deal. But you have to be brave enough to jump from one fishbowl sometimes into the other fishbowl. And that doesn't mean, like, thinking, oh, I like restaurants, I'm going to start one. That's not what I mean, because that's like just financial suicide. I mean, like, thinking about restaurants, being a chef or a front of the house person who's amazing, doing your homework, thinking about how can I minimize all the risks, and really doing anything and everything you can to remove the opportunities for failure from the scenario, and then you very safely jump from one bowl into another bowl. The fish is not jumping into the air. There's a bowl there. Do you know what I mean? You like my stock photography? No, I'm just joking. It's about calculated and careful, but also being brave enough to do it. 99% of Americans are going to keep on swimming in the same doggone bowl forever because for some reason we think that's the only bowl, because we just keep doing the same things we've always been doing. I want to encourage you and empower you to just please sometimes jump out of your bowl. Maybe that means I'm polishing off my resume. Maybe it means that I might want to take that new job in St. Louis. Maybe it means, oh, I think I might follow my music career after all. Whatever it is for you, you have to be okay to sometimes take that leap. I think, too, one of the things this is sort of the bad self-talk we do with ourselves where we say, like, oh, what if I'm not as happy at doing X as I was at Y? We do that. Like, what if I make a mistake? The Y is, like, 99% of the time always still there. It's not going anywhere. Like, if you take a leap, the safety net's usually always there. Your house is usually still there. The people you love and care for are always, and half the time your job is still there. If you're great at your job and you leave and then you come back and we're like, homeboy, that was the worst mistake ever. I'm here to help make you rich. He'll be like, come on back. You know, they'll take you back. It's okay. The why, as in the letter Y, is usually always still there. One of the things that I've tried to surround myself with successful people and get little nuggets here and there, and one of the things that I've continued to hear over and over again from successful people is that you don't ever regret the things you do. You always regret the things you didn't do. Like, don't sit around and think, I should have done, when I was 30, I should have. No, go, no regrets. Do it, and then your worst case scenario, you've learned a very valuable life lesson. Worst case scenario, yeah, you might not have exactly been perfect at that, but you realize, okay, now I know a lot of really important things that will help me with the next step. Serial entrepreneurs do this all the time. They're like, that didn't work, but I'm moving on. Keep moving on, and don't sit around and have regrets. The fourth one that I want to talk to you is about being passionate and being contagious. No one wants to work alongside or be led by a wet blanket or a clock puncher. Like, those people suck. They're in every organization. Don't be them. And you cannot be a leader and be those people. No one wants to be led by Debbie Downer. You've got to love what you do, and it's got to exude from you. It will ultimately attract the right talent if you're a boss or an owner. It will ultimately attract the right people that you want to connect with. When you're infectious and you're contagious and like excited and passionate about what you do, the world starts to come together in a little bit of a different way. A lot of times I will be on like a pitch call, like when we're trying to land a piece of business, and I'm thinking, oh my God, if they only knew I was in my underwear with no bra on right now. If they could only see and know that I'm officially like nervous, but I'm selling them on it. I'm on it. And then by the time I get off the phone, I'm like yelling at my husband going, do you know who you married? Like, do you know? Like, I just landed Sometimes you gotta fake it till you make it. You've got to sell the passion. At the end of the day, people want to do business with people that make them feel good and that they can have trust in. When you're confident and when you're passionate about something, it creates trust in people. If you tell me you're the best doggone first-time home buying lady and you believe it, people around you start to believe it too. Like, she really is the home. Even if you're not yet, just do. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, anyway, you get the idea. So who is brave enough to show us all their passion about what they do for a living? Okay, yes. Okay, stand up, give us your elevator pitch, and tell us about your passion for what you do and why it's so great.
So I used to be a vice president of a local company, a little one you might be familiar with. I now full-time run Melafina Chocolates. 100% of our profits go to children's charities. I volunteer my time and my entire staff is volunteer. We make the best awesome truffles that you'll ever taste, and if you haven't had any, there's more out there. And we specialize in corporate gifts. So when companies send them out to their clients, we put the brand on the outside. There's a card on the inside that says all the profits will go to children's charities, so it makes a great impression. And then all of those profits go to people like CASA for one, Boys and Girls Club for another.
Great. Are you buying it? Are you buying like? Yeah, I like the smile. Do the smile with it. I feel the smile.
It is absolutely the most meaningful thing I've ever done in my entire career.
Love it. Again, when you feel it, others around you will feel it. Okay, now what's your name again? I'm sorry. Brenda. Yay, we're clapping for Brenda, who was brave enough. Brenda, I have a feeling you're a superwoman, so I'm giving you this little journey to start to write down your journey. Giving you this journal to start to write down all your greatness for yourself and for your offspring one day. Yeah, your greatness. Yeah, I'm buying it. I could feel it. You gotta ask yourself, are you passionate about what you do? And if you're not, stop doing it. Why do we do that? Why do we do shitty things? Like, don't do them anymore. We're our own worst enemies. We do this. We like, no, you actually don't. You actually don't have to do the same thing that you've been doing. You do have the power to move on, to take that leap, and to do something that you truly love. Again, it works. It attracts the right people. And if I can study consumers like too much, but consumers make decisions based on emotions. We sit as marketers and are like, what's the reason to believe that they do this? But people don't actually make decisions based on practical, evidentiary facts. We make decisions based on things that make us feel good. It's why we date the guy who's no good for us. It's why we eat too much. It's why we smoke. It's why, do you know what I mean? Like, it's why we go on vacation when we really can't afford it. Because it made us feel, people do things because of emotions. If you give your clients or your customers an opportunity to work with people that make them feel good, but by the way, you're competent and you're good at what you do, you're always going to win. Do you know what I mean? When all things are at parity, people want to do business with the people who make them feel good. And I will move on because, oh my gosh, I got a dozen and we're on number 5. Did I say that thing all right up there? Yeah, be a charismatic leader. Could you do that? All right, moving on. The next one I'll talk about is while you're having rainbows and unicorns exude out of your flesh, you got to be okay to get uncomfortable. It's not really always rainbows and unicorns, regardless of what industry you're in or what kind of role you play. Behind the scenes, sometimes things can be very brutal. And if you want to be that beautiful ballerina or create that beautiful ballet, you need to be willing to learn how to wear the toe shoes that can be brutal and make your feet bleed. And that's that whole phase you go through before the beautiful ballet begins. There are times, and when I think back on my career, the times that I've grown the most and where I've seen my own personal, professional development happen at the greatest sort of leaps are those times when I really felt uncomfortable. It's the time when somebody called and said, could you guys do this? And I was like, uh-huh. And then I hung up and thought, we can't do that. How am I going to do that? I don't know how we're going to do that. Everyone, let's have a meeting about how we can't do that, but then by the time the meeting's over, let's figure out how we can do that. Like those sort of gut in your belly kind of like fearful times. Or I've been in scenarios where I've sat in not even Fortune 500, but sort of Fortune 100 meetings where like the Ivy League MBA who is new to the organization wants to just outsmart the consultant, which is us, and just to be an asshole. Do you know these people? They're asshole. What? They can make you feel like crap, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, should I be doubting myself? Actually, you're the one who doesn't know what you're talking about. But those moments when you just kind of want to shrivel up, or you're kind of like, could I exit stage left because this isn't going the way I envisioned in my head? Like those moments are times that you figure out, what am I made of? And the next time you go into that scenario, you're better, you're stronger. Like think about your own, like those times in your life, like when have you done the growth? It's when you were uncomfortable. I think that a lot of times people that I meet now in my career are like, oh, I want to do what you do. That sounds fun. You just want to hang out with kids all day. I'm thinking, bitch, you have no idea what I'm doing behind the scene. Could I say that? I'm cussing. I'm just joking. You guys know in your businesses, whatever it is that you're doing, there's an ugly side of it. For me personally, because I'm a night owl, I built a business from 10 p.m. until like 3 in the morning. And I literally sat there and I wrote proposals and I figured things out, because for me, that was my peace time. The phone wasn't ringing. No one was knocking on my door. Like that for me is what for some people is 6 or 5 in the morning when they go to the gym or they go for a walk. For me, it was late night. But I remember vividly now it's been 10 years, sitting there and thinking, I'm gonna have things that I want and that other people aren't gonna have because I'm sitting here doing this. Like I'm working towards something, but I'm willing to pay the price. There's too many people who don't want to pay the price and who don't want to get uncomfortable, or like, I want to own a business. I want to do you really? Do you really want to fight with your husband because he hasn't seen, do you really? Like, we need to be careful about what we ask for sometimes, but you guys know, even in your professional careers, even if you're not a business owner, sometimes it's not very pretty. Sometimes you know, right, Mel? Isn't it ugly sometimes behind the scene, and then you just put on your big girl panties and smile about it and pretend it's not? But it can be, I won't start crying again. But sometimes it can be ugly, and I mean, there have definitely been times in my life where I've thought, it's 1 in the morning, I don't even know what town I am in because I'm sort of jet lagged. I'm walking through a creepy like hotel parking lot trying to check in with like 4 bags behind me. If someone murdered me right now, I don't even know if anybody would find me or know what town, like why am I here? Again, going back to number 1, why am I there? Like you've got to get uncomfortable. A lot of girls are not going on a business trip by themselves. Like if you don't want to, then don't, do you know what I mean? Like you need to ask yourself if that's what you're willing to do. And if you want to have things that you want, sometimes it's going to require getting uncomfortable to make that happen. 6 is surrounding yourself with amazing people. You've got that fire in your belly. You know what you want to do. You know what you want out of your life. You need to surround yourself by people who are amazing, who you can trust, because nobody succeeds alone. I'm standing up here acting like I did something great. I'm surrounded by amazing men and women who at this point I've been able to step back a little bit and not be up at 2 in the morning anymore because they're amazing. And it's not because I've reproduced myself in them, it's because they're just simply amazing. And I've gravitated to rock stars. If you're not, don't come to me. Like I don't want to talk to you unless you're gonna share my vision, unless you're willing to pay the price. Like I don't wanna, we can't hang out because my objectives are not, that sounded horrible. We can hang out all day. We just can't hang out between 9 and 5. We can just hang out, no, I'm just joking. When you find passionate people who care about and are doing what you're doing, it's so important. I think connecting with people who are at essentially the people who you want to be versus the people that are who you used to be is really important. And I don't mean like cutting off your friends. I just mean keep them in the friend zone. Like sometimes you don't need to mix business with pleasure. Sometimes you don't need to ask like your uncle who's broke for financial advice. Do you know like sometimes they just don't go together. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, again, kind of connecting with people who are where you want to be is really important, and making sure that you attract, if you're in a hiring position, the right talent is so important. I'm not getting into this a lot, but if I were talking about talent and staffing and things like that, I would say hire slowly and fire quickly. When you sniff them, get them out of there because it only gets worse, but make very, very careful decisions about if you're considering going into business, who are you going into business with? Because your obligation to that person is bigger than a marriage. Like that is a huge life decision. Be very careful about who you get in bed with, especially if you're, sort of business owning. But even your employees, like who do you really want to spend your days with? And it's so important to surround yourself by people who are doing what you're doing, but who are really great at it. And then when you find them, demand excellence. I stopped apologizing for this a long time ago. Maybe it's because I turned 40 and the filter just went right out the window, and after a certain point you just don't care. But it's okay to have high standards, and I've gotten really comfortable with my own personal truth, which is that I like greatness, I like precision, I like excellence. It's what's helped catapult our business forward, and I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm not going to be embarrassed that I'm successful. I'm not going to like dumb it down for people who want to work with me, but who aren't pulling the weight of all the other great people who are working with me. Like, I think as women, we're sometimes like, I don't want to be a bitch. I got to make sure to sugarcoat everything. You do need to be nice. You do need to be respectful, and I've tried to learn that over time. I'm just joking. I've tried to get better at that, but you're doing everybody a disservice when you've got like 10 people on your team who are rock stars, and then one person over here who shows up an hour late and leaves an hour early. No, it's not okay. It's not okay to do that anymore. I think that this one is a good time to take a break and do a role play. So I need 2 volunteers. Who wants to volunteer? Teresa will volunteer. And what about the girl next to Teresa? Okay, so Teresa, you are an employee who's not pulling your weight. And what's your name? Kayla, right? Kayla, you're her boss, and you need to nicely and professionally let her know that it ain't working. So let's do it. No pressure, but go. So your filter's even worse. So the first thing you have to do in this situation is ask yourself, is this employee or is this relationship salvageable or not? If it's not salvageable, don't do the song and dance. If it is salvageable and you see promise in this person and it's just about some course correcting, let them know that. If it's not, it's time to get real and say this isn't working for you anymore and it's working for me. Let's be honest with ourselves as grown-ups. So you got to decide, do you like Teresa and want to keep her or not? And then let her rip.
But Miss Warren, I know I came in like 10 minutes late this morning, and I am so sorry, and I'm going to do better.
All right, Teresa, here's my challenge with that. 10 minutes late is impactful to the business. And it's not the first time I've heard 10 minutes late, I'm going to do better. So as long as you understand we have goals here and we're all focused on the same goal, I'm going to give you about 30 days to get in line with that goal because I understand what you're going through. But if you can't get in line with that goal in 30 days, we're going to be having a different conversation.
So does that mean that I have to like be on time or I can't be spot on? I mean, it's asking a lot.
Oh, so let me stop you there.
Oh, okay.
So if that's the first question you're asking, I don't see this working for us because we all have a common goal here, which means being prompt and on time and focused.
But I have a family. I mean, sometimes, little Billy, he just comes in, he squats, and he just drops it right there. I do the best I can. I get up early, and I swear, just sometimes I just cannot get to work on time. I'm so sorry.
If you gotta cry, run your incoming.
So this is going to take me to the why. So Teresa, why are you late? Why are you challenged? All of us have families. All of us have other demands on our time. We're here. We're focused on the goal of the business. Okay.
You are so mean to me. I love it. Okay, how'd they do? They did well. Yay. You did very well. These are conversations that you have to get comfortable having. Like, I've literally made my husband role play with me at night while I'm sort of like nervous in my stomach about like, I think this person isn't working out, but how do I say this properly? I'm like, it's 1 a.m. Okay, you're such and such. And he's like, oh my God, is this for real? Like, are we role playing now? But we need to get I think that as women, those conversations are not very normal for us. Like, do you guys feel comfortable having those conversations? Yeah, I'm seeing lots of no's. Like, they're not comfortable. Like, we need to do them enough with a safe partner that they start to feel comfortable enough and also come to sort of the truth that, like, it's a disservice to them as well. I have become, this is obnoxious to say, I have become so masterful at firing people that it's not even funny. It's really only happened like 5 times. That at the end of it, they're thanking me. Seriously, and then because I position it in a, Betty, you are amazing. You are a great creative thinker. You are this, you are that, you are this. But what I need is this and this and this, and this doesn't feel like it's matching well. I think you need to go like a free bird and follow your creative energies. And the next thing you know, they're like, I should leave. And I'm like, Yes, you should. There's a way you can do it because people know if you're uncomfortable with them, 99% of the time they're uncomfortable in your organization too. Do you know what I mean? Like, anyway, so let's move on. Knowing your worth is so important. And the second part of that, which is asking for it. As women, we are so bad at this. There is a huge gender divide in terms of finances and what people are paid in this country. Not that that's not true and real, but some of that's on us. Like, we have to start to ask for what we feel like we deserve. We're kind of taught, especially as women, that talking about money is in poor taste, that asking for money is sort of tacky. I think that's bullshit. I think that men are very comfortable in that. They know their worth. They know what they're contributing to an organization. They'll go to a guy and go, hey, buddy, you're killing me over here. Can I get 10 grand more? And then 2 hours later, they're playing golf. And I'm like, wait, what just happened? Women are like at their house, like, I can't think of what I would say. We need to get comfortable having those conversations. Sorry, I'm like sort of all over the place. Sorry. This is important. I want us to do like another little, you still got your notepad and pen? All right, this is going to be, you might need a calculator for this. But I want you to take 30 seconds or however long it takes you, even if the math is wrong, it doesn't matter. I want you to write down what you're worth. Okay, here's how I want you to calculate it. What's your replacement value at your career, at your business? If somebody were to need to replace you to do that same thing, how much would that cost? What about the nanny it would cost to raise your kids? What about the housekeeper it would cost to do all the stuff you're doing at your house? Like, what is really all the stuff that you're contributing on this planet, and what's the value of that? Just write it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You could be like, it could cost $30,000 a year to get a replacement wife for my husband. Like, whatever, whatever you think the value is, like, just go ahead and write that value. That's cheap. I don't know what the going rate of a replacement wife is, but yeah. Depends on the age. Oh, and the country of origin, right? So are you doing it? Are you writing it down? Okay, so add all that stuff up. What do you think? What do you think your fair market value is if you went for a new job today? Do you feel like you're making 30 and should be making 35 because that's what others coming into your role are making? Like, what is it for you? And then don't forget all the other stuff that we do as women. A hired limousine service is pretty expensive, which probably half of you guys do, and shuttling your kids and other people around all day long. But you don't have to factor that in. Okay, so now take that number, you're adding it up, take that number and divide it by, let's say, 2,000. Okay? If that's too hard, just divide it by 2. And then add 3 zeros. Well, actually don't. Subtract 3 zeros. Yeah. Yeah, subtract 3. Just do by, you're like, what? Okay, who's brave enough to just throw out a number? The reason I'm telling you divide it by 2,000 is because that's roughly, Debbie, correct me on this, it's roughly the number of hours we work in a year. It's like 2,087 or something, okay? For all those who think about these things. That's roughly the amount of hours that you're working, at least in a paid role each year. So anybody want to throw out a number? Yeah. Nice job, lady. I want to get to know you. No, oh, you did? Oh, good. Why is it important to do this, whether it's $75 or $250 or $2,000 an hour? When you start to think about your own worth, things in your head start to change. Number one, you start to think about, what do I want to do with my time? If I'm worth $250 an hour, I need to be thinking about, is that a task worth $250? Did that give me any joy? Did that help me make $250 more dollars? Did this thing over here pay off for me? I used to feel super uncomfortable and like a bad mom and wife that our living room was always messy. And then I started doing the math on it, and I thought, I don't give a shit if the living room is messy. I'm too valuable to clean. I'm just joking. That's so obnoxious. But if you think about it and you can hire a person who cleans the living room for $10 or $15 an hour while you make $250 an hour, you won by $240. Like, we need to think about what are the ways that we want to spend our time and what is your value. It's also so important in business, not only if you have a boss that you feel like you need to kind of have that, like, what's my worth and I need a salary sort of course correction here, but also in business. We as women, very often are like, oh great, I'm so happy to take your cash, even though, I don't know if it's like this in the chocolate world, but like, I've got a $3,000 cost over here to run your chocolate order for you. You have $2,000 to give me. And they were like, okay, I'll take your $2,000. No, you're not gonna take their $2,000. You know what you say to them? I forgot your name already. Brenda, you're gonna say, I would love to take your $2,000 order, but this is a $3,000 job, and unfortunately, if you're not able to get to the $3,000, we'd have to pass on this one. And you want me to tell you what happens? And I've seen it 100,000 times. They always come back crawling. We're so scared that they're not going to come back. We're so scared. People, especially companies, they all have mysterious money hidden away, but their job is to make sure that they get you down and down and down. It's your job to know your value. If it costs you $3,000 to run it and it took 2 weeks of your labor, why are you doing it to break even? At the end of the month, you look back and you're like, that was not a good use of my time. That is not a good value for me. Do what?
My problem is it's not a good business decision.
It's not a good business decision. And I think, and I don't want to like blame it on being a woman, but I do think that we're particularly susceptible to this, and especially in environment. The same happens with work. I think that we need to get comfortable having those conversations where we say, Bob, I feel like, do anybody have a boss named Bob? Have a boss named Bob? You do, really? Okay, so you're up next. Ready? Yes? Okay, who's next? Because I'm going to make you do something. Okay, next volunteer. I'm going to start picking on people and calling on them. You guys look so nervous over there. She's got her hand up like this. Oh, you're talking about me. Are you guys twins? Oh, I'm like, you're so close to being twins. Only 9 months apart. Okay, so you want to go? Sure. Okay, so let's don't tell your sister. Let's tell Abby, who's here. Abby's your boss named Bob, okay? And I want you to tell her that it's time for a pay raise, that you've been thinking about it, you've been looking, doing some competitive intelligence, you know what your replacement value is, and I want you to pitch Bob on why it's time for the pay raise, okay? And action.
Bob, listen, I made some phone calls, I've talked to quite a few people in similar positions in companies. I'm getting really tired of cleaning my living room every night. I really break down housework, so I need a raise. And it's going to be about $150 an hour raise.
We cannot afford a $150 an hour raise. And I'm not sure that what you are bringing to our company is going to justify that kind of raise. But I will look at that and get back with you.
So this is a good point to have, because I should have caveated this and said, know your value, but it can't be delusional. And not that you're delusional, you could be worth thousands of dollars an hour, I don't know. But you do have to ask yourself, like, what is a buyer willing to buy? Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't say, oh, I sell widgets for $40,000 each. If nobody's buying them, you might have to sell it for $4 each if that's the fair market value of it. What's your market value? Do you know what I mean? Okay, so what's your name? Laura. Okay, Laura, I'm giving you a gift, but it's in an envelope. Okay, so you pass that to Laura. Okay, it's a secret. It's not a book. It's a secret. But I want you to know that asking for things pays off, okay? It's in an envelope. It's a special envelope. So knowing your worth is so important. Being able to ask for it is important. And I want to end these last couple and talk about some things that aren't really as much about managing business, but really about managing you. I want to first talk about if you're in the business of excelling, you're doing well, you're passionate, etc. We need to learn to compartmentalize and to stop multitasking. I think we've been sold a big fat lie that we can do everything all the time and do it well. And as women, especially, we're taught, I got my hand over here, I can do this. Hold on, I'm gonna be the PTA president on the side. Like, you really can't. It's kind of a lie. We've been told that we can be that, and I know that your Superwoman journal that I just handed you would lead us to believe that, but in many ways it sort of is a lie. It's so important for you guys to create the walls physically and sort of mentally, and the structure and time frames that allow you to be your most effective. I run a business from home. I've learned this the hard way, where I didn't really know how to balance, like, I don't want my kids to think I don't like them, but they can't come in here when I'm on a video call with a client. Like, this is not working. So I finally got to the point where I sat them down and I said, okay, If you're at school and your teacher's teaching and I walk in and go, hey, Addison, you forgot your underwear in your room last night. Can you pick those up before we go down to dinner tomorrow night? You would be like, why are you here? What are you doing? And I said, that's the way I feel when you come into my office at 4 o'clock and don't knock and they're like, what's up? I can't find my cleats. I'm like, this system is not working. All of a sudden they get it when you put it on their terms and it's like, I don't come into your classroom. That's not the time or the place. They get it. Whether it's physically creating the structures or it's setting up the times where you tell your staff, hey guys, email is eating me alive and I'm dying over here. But you know what I've decided? I'm gonna check email every day from 9 to 10 and then I'm gonna shut it down and do my work. And then I'm gonna check it again from 12 to 1 and then I'm gonna check it again from 4 to 5. Don't expect me to respond to you between, set the boundaries, I know that seems like you can't do that, but actually you can do that, especially if you're running the show. Things will eat us alive that are not supposed to eat us alive, and email is the worst. It will eat you alive. I'm so unproductive at my own desk sometimes. You've got to create those structures and those boundaries that allow you to be effective and give yourself some of those areas that let yourself do your best work. At the same time, I'll say, be selfish. This sounds so horrible and nasty, and I remember the woman who told me this the first time I heard it, I thought, that's not nice. Like, that has such a negative connotation. It implies that you want yourself to be more important than others. It means that you're not willing to take care of others. It just feels very negative, especially for women. But I want you for a minute to just consider that being selfish might be a positive thing or might have a positive spin on it. You don't have to say this out loud, but just kind of reframing it in your head. And think about, why is it on an airplane that they tell you to put your life not life vest, but like your life mask, your air mask on before you help others? It's because you can't help others when you're dying. Like, literally and metaphorically in business, you can't effectively save other people when you're drowning or when you don't have oxygen. And women are so guilty of this sometimes. If you think about yourself like a bucket, that's real sexy, I know, but a bucket, what fills up your bucket? Like, what is the going for a walk, the I'm going out with my girlfriends, the I'm reading a book, I'm listening to a book on tape, I'm going to the gym? What is personally filling up your bucket? Because all day long you're going to have people poking holes in your bucket, whether it's your kids, it's your boss, it's this command over here, it's this demand over here. You can't keep giving to others if you don't have any water left to give. Do you know what I mean? It's really important to be selfish. It took me a long time to get there because I thought, I got to take care of my kids and my family and my parents and my this. Actually, all of that stuff is not being well taken care of if I'm not taking care of myself well first. And you guys know this. Like, when you're running on empty and you feel like Wile E. Coyote and the anvil just dropped on you while you were trying to chase the roadrunner at the end of the night, you're not an effective leader. No one wants to be around you. You're not inspiring greatness, you're surviving. So what is it going to take for you to fill up your bucket? I think that's important to think about. And then one of our last ones is the power of no. I'm still sort of learning how to do this, and this is one of those things that, again, kind of goes back to learning just skills that are sort of uncomfortable for us as women. The same as I had kind of told you that some of the most important times of growth were when I felt uncomfortable personally. Also, when I look back, some of the times that I said no, I'm so proud of. I remember sitting on a plane once and calling my husband and saying, do you remember that day that your wife landed? Do you remember that? And he was like, yes, Wynne, why are you calling? So I'm like, guess what I did today? Because he knew there was another piece of business that was coming. And I said, guess what I did today? And he was like, what? And I said, I told him no. And he was like, what? And I said, I feel great. I feel like getting on this plane and just flying right away. Because what they were asking us to do, we didn't know how to do well. It was going to kill us to try and get it done. And they didn't want to pay us enough money to do it. And by the time it was over, I was like, I felt so empowered, so rewarded. It feels good to have boundaries. It feels good to sometimes say no. And again, they always come crawling back, because when you're not so accessible, you have more value. Like, think about that. Think about the trashy girl in your high school. No, I'm just joking. Think about the, do you know what I mean? Like, if you're not always around, I'm willing to pay for when you are around. Saying no is so important sometimes, not only for your own personal health, but for business reasons too. Again, it sort of ups your ante in terms of your value. And sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves that it's not the right match. Debbie, maybe we're not the right match for you. I don't know. Debbie does our 401k plan for us. But maybe we're a crappy client. Cut us loose. No, please don't. Please don't do that. But sometimes you have to ask yourself, does this make good business sense? And then the last thing I'll end with is being honest with ourselves and knowing that the pathway to success, whatever that is for your own personal success, is definitely not linear. The stuff that I sat and plotted out 11 years ago, half of it came to life, half of it didn't. Some of the things I let go, some of the things I laugh at, some of the things that still pains me that we don't do as well or that I wish we had done differently. But you have to be honest enough with yourself to reassess and course correct. If you've decided that you're going to be the best caviar saleswoman in Johnson City, and after 3 years of selling the caviar, you still haven't broken even, you're miserable, it's not working, you're not any closer to your list of whys than you were before, stop selling caviar in Johnson City. Like that, do you know what I mean? Like sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves and realize this didn't work. I gave it a college try, I did everything I could, but this is not working out. The means to the end did not result in the end that I was hoping that it would have. We really do need to do this sometimes, is to just kind of get out of our own way and be willing to detour when we need to. If you think you're great at making sugar cookies and then you start having people tell you your sugar cookies aren't so great, start making brownies fast. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. Don't be locked into your sugar cookies. We get very latched onto our stuff. You need to sort of let go. I think as women in general, we need to, if I were doing 20 of these instead of 12 because I've already gone way too long, letting go would be another one of those. My 2-year-old got hooked on the Frozen soundtrack and would sing let it go, let it go. And again, me with the business metaphor all the time, I'm like, I do. He's twirling around obliviously thinking he's a princess, and I'm like, I do need to let it go. Because men are good at letting stuff go. Do you see how they let stuff go? We stew on stuff for weeks. Why do we do that? We need to move on and move on up. Yeah. So anywho, I will stop talking. Sometimes it's time for a reboot, which was that last point. These were the 12, in case you want to put them in your pocket or whatever. Again, I could have given you 50. These were ones that I hope that were applicable to at least some of you and that you were able to take away some little nuggets. And I hope you're leaving with some thoughts about what you can do to personally chase your dreams a little more. But thank you for having me, Jan and team. And it was an honor, and thank you guys. Thanks. Oh, I should have said, it's time to go, but I should have said any questions, or was I supposed to say that? Any questions? I left nothing, no stone unturned on that one. But
you were very thorough. Okay. It was awesome. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you. My name is Rebecca White, and I'm the marketing director here at Bank of Tennessee, and we want to sincerely thank each and every single one of you for coming tonight, for being customers, for trusting us, and we hope that you find this seminar and others that we're going to be putting on valuable. And if there's anything that we can do to help you personally or in your business, please let us know. Thank you, and be safe going home.